Okay, hello everyone. All right, so the next program in chapter 5 is test average and grade. Let's change this to capital. Test average, test average and grade. Write a program that asks the user to enter 5 test scores. The program should display a letter grade for each score and the average test score. Write the following methods in the program. calcAverage, which basically calculates average. This method should accept 5 test scores as argument and return the average of the scores. A determineGrade is going to accept a test score as an argument and return a letter grade for the test score for the score based on the following grading scale. Okay, so let's see. All right, so we know this program is going to ask the user to enter 5 test scores, right? Before that, let me go ahead and create a class and then the main method. So I'll go ahead and create a class and I'll call it test average and grade. And then I'll create the main method. Okay, so we know that we're going to ask the user to enter 5 test scores, right? So since we're going to be asking the user to enter 5 test scores, let's go ahead and we have to use one of Java's features for accepting user input. So for this one, I'm going to choose to use the scanner class. Now I can choose to use a JOption pane, but I'm just choosing to use scanner class. Okay, so if you wanted to use the JOption pane, you can go ahead and do that. Now to use the scanner class, we have to go ahead and import it so that this program can have access to it. So to import the scanner class, I'm going to go ahead and type import java.util.scanner. So now we have imported the scanner class, so this program has access to it. Now with the scanner class, we have to go ahead and declare an object. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and declare a scanner object. I'm going to call it scanner, and I'm going to create a new scanner object in memory. I'm going to pass in the system.in method, which is basically going to accept the input from the user, which is going to be byte info, and it's going to connect it to the scanner object here so we can use it. We can go ahead and convert what the user typed using the methods in the scanner class to let's say doubles or integers or whatever we need it to be in. So now we have the scanner object, we can go ahead and use it. Okay, so write a program that asks the user to enter 5 test scores. The program should display a letter grade for each score and average test score. Write the following methods in the program. So we know we are going to write these methods. So calcAverage. This method should accept 5 test scores as arguments and return the average of the scores. Now we don't have the scores yet, so let's hold on this one. I mean, you can still define it. We can still define it, but let's let's go ahead and do it. Let's just go ahead and do it. All right, so like I mentioned in other programs, some people choose to define or declare their methods right below the main methods, and it's fine. It's still going to work because as soon as you declare you create your methods under the as soon as you create your method in this class, it's available to this class. Okay, you can call it in main even though it's below the main method. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and create mine on top of the main. It still works, but sometimes I like to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create the calcAverage method. So it's going to be a public static method. Public because it's going to be available to code. The code is going to be available to this method is going to be available to code outside this class. And static because this method belongs to this class. Okay, so this method is going to accept 5 test scores as arguments and return the average of the scores. Now it's going to return the average. The average score can be a double. It could be 87.5. So I'm going to set this the return value of this method to a double. And the method is going to be called calcAverage. Now this method is going to accept a couple of arguments. So I'm going to define a couple of parameters. over here it says the method should over here it says the method should accept 5 test scores as arguments. So because it's going to accept 5 test scores as arguments, I'm going to define 5 variables to hold the test scores. So the test scores are, they can be doubles to the point. I mean, the person can type in 60.5, percent or something. So, I mean 60.5 over 100. Same thing. So because of that, I'm going to define the scores as doubles. So double score 1, double score 2, double score 3, score 4, and then score 5. And over here it says the method should over here and over it is and return the average of the scores. So we know this method is going to return the average of the scores. So over here I'm going to go ahead and define or declare a variable called, it's going to be a double, I'm going to call it average. Let's say average. Average is going to hold the average of these scores. We have these scores because they're going to be passed into this method when it's called as argument. So I'm defining a variable called average. I'm declaring a variable called average. And over here, I'm going to go ahead and calculate the average. The average is average, like I said, is going to be it can be a double. So I set the return type to double, and I set the value to a double as well. I defined it as a double variable. So I'm going to now calculate the average. Average now is going to be equal to score 1 plus score 2 plus score 3 plus score 4 plus score 5. So I'm surrounding all these by parentheses because I want this to evaluate first. I want to first get the sum of all these before dividing by the sum. I mean the total of these scores. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scores. So I'm going to divide by 5, and that's going to be the average. Now once I get the average, I want to go ahead and return it. So I want to go ahead and return the average like this. So when we call this method, it's going to accept 5 test scores. Sorry. It's going to calculate the average and then return the average. Okay, now the second method the program wants us to create is determineGrade. Now this method is going to accept a test score, 1 test score, and then it's going to return 1 test score as an argument, and it's going to return a letter grade for the score based on the following grading scale. Okay, so based on this grading scale. All right, so let's go ahead and define that method as well. So I'm going to create a public static method. It said that it's going to return a letter grade for the score. Now, a letter grade is a string, or we can actually if you want, we can actually make it a char variable. But I'm going to set it as a string. So it's going to return a string. All right. So, like I said, you can make it a character variable, but I'm making mine a string. All right. So public static string, because I know I'm returning a string, and I'm going to name it determineGrade. How they wanted us to how the question wanted us to name it. So determineGrade is the name of the method. And over here it said that this method should accept a test score as an argument. So 1 test score. We know it's going to accept 1 test score as an argument. So I'm going to go ahead and define a variable that's going to hold that test score. So, and the test score again can be a double. For example, 50.5. So I'm going to define or declare a double variable, and I'm going to call it score because it's going to take a test score. I can even say test score. So this is going to take a test score, and it's going to, based on the value of this test score, it's going to return a letter grade. So I'm going to go ahead and create an if statement in. You know what? I'm going to use a switch statement. Let's see. Yeah, I can use a switch statement. Let's see what happens. That's fine. I'll use a switch statement. It's the same. It's very similar to the if statement. So I'm going to switch. Based on the value. So this is what I'm switching. I'm switching on. So this is the variable this is my target variable. So I'm switching to the cases, I'm going to type it in this block based on the value of test score. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. So in the case where let's say in the case where test score is equal to case, it's fine. In the case where test score is equal to is less than, actually, you know what, should we do that? The reason why I'm saying that is because we switch only takes integers, right? So if the person types in a double, then it's going to be a problem. I mean, prior to Java 7, okay, we couldn't do that. It only accepted it only accepted integers in the int group, the integer group. So short, long, int, byte, stuff like that, and basically the integer group. But now it's going to be a problem because this is a double. So let's move to the regular if statement, because switching on a double can be a problem. Because, for example, if you say if the test score is greater than 1.0, now what about 1.1? 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, stuff like that. So what about 1.11, 1.111? So it can be a problem. So let's just switch to a regular if statement. Okay, so let's see. All right, so if the test score that a user has provided as an argument, if the test score is, let's see, if the test score is, so we are basically creating these conditions. So if the test score is from 90 to 100 is an A, right? So let's start from, let's see, 60 to 90, 69. Let's start from below 60. Let's start from below 60. So if the test score is less than 60, then we want to go ahead and create a variable. Before that, let's go ahead and create a variable that's going to represent a letter grade. So that variable is going to be a string. So string letter grade. Initially, it's going to be nothing. Okay, so nothing is going to be in letter grade. So if the test score is less than 60, then we know letter grade is going to hold the value F, right? Letter grade is not going to be equal to F over here, like this. Okay. Now else if, okay, now what if the test score is not less than 60? If it's not less than 60, then that means it's 60 and above. But we don't want all the numbers, we don't want 60 and above, we want 60 to 69. So we want all the numbers, if it's not less than 60, that means it's 60 and above. So we want, if it's 60 and above, we want all the numbers 60 and above, but also less than 70. So else if the test score is less than 70. Over here, if it's not less than 60, then that means it's 60 and above, right? And for all the numbers 60 and above, we want the ones also less than 70. So basically, this is going to give us 60 to 69. If it's not less than 60, it's 60 and above. For all the numbers 60 and above, we want the numbers less than 70. So 60 to 69, we want the letter grade to be over here. See, 60 to 69, I want the letter grade to be D. So this is going to be D. Then I'll continue from here. Else if, let's take this down. I can copy and paste. I'll do that for the next one. All right, so if the test score is, let's see. All right, so if the test score is not less than 60, and the test score is not also is also not less than 70, then that means that it's 70 and above. That means that test score is 70 and above, right? But we don't want all the scores 70 and above. We want the scores from 70 to 79. Okay, if the score is not less than 60, not less than 70, then that means it's 70 and above. We don't want all the numbers 70 and above. For all the numbers 70 and above, we also want the ones less than, because it's 70, 79. We want the ones less than 80. Okay, because if it's not less than 70, that means it's 70 and above. But we don't want all the numbers 70 and above. If that number is 70 and above, but also less than 80, then that means this range is going to cover 70 to 79. And 70 to 79, we're getting a grade of a letter grade of C. So in that case, then letter grade is going to be equal to C. All right, let me go ahead and copy this. Okay, so else if, now let's do the next one. If that, so just forget about this. Forget about the highlighted part. This is what we have. We're going to just change the values. Actually, as a matter of fact, let me just delete this. Delete. Just delete this for now. Okay, so if the test score is not less than 80, then that means that the test score is 80 and above. So for all the numbers 80 and above, you want the ones less than 90. Because if the test score has gotten to this point, it's not less than 60, it's not less than 70, it's not less than 80, then that means that test score is 80 and above. For all the numbers 80 and above, we want the ones less than 90. We want the test score to be 80 and above, but at the same time less than 90. In that case, then the letter grade is a B. Okay, 80 to 89, it's a B. All right. And then else. Okay, else meaning if it's not any of these, okay, if it's not less than 60, not less than 70, not less than 80, not less than 90, okay, if that test score is not less than 90, then that means it's 90 and above. It's 90 and above, right? And if it's not any of these, then we know automatically that number is going to be 90 and above. And for 90 and above, the person gets an A. You can go ahead and just type in an else, or you can go ahead and explicitly state that else if, okay, else if the test score is, where is it? You can say else if the test score is greater than or equal to 90. You can go ahead and be explicit about it and type it this way and state the condition, because else if test score is greater than or equal to 90, it has to be 90 and above, right? 90 and above. Okay, now we have to also specify for anything. It doesn't have to be, we can say else if test score is greater than or equal to 90 and above, and at the same time the test score is less than let's see, or equal to 100, or we can say less than 101. Okay, so if that test score is really greater than or equal to 90, and at the same time the test score is less than 101, then that means we are dealing with the range of 90 to 100. You can do that. You can go ahead and be specific about it. But like I said, if you just type in else over here, if it comes all the way here and it's not less than 90, then we know the score is either 90 and above. And for 90 and above, we are dealing with a letter grade of A. Right, but the thing is, if we don't want 90 and above, the person can type 101, and then we can have an issue. All right, so let's be specific. Actually, let's be specific and then try to do this. Let's see. Yeah, so let's be specific. So if the test score is not less than 90, then we know that the test score is 90 and above. All right. We don't want all the numbers 90 and above. We want the numbers from 90 and above, and at the same time less than 100. So, at the same time less than 101. So, I'm sorry, I forgot to type the test score. So else if the test if the test score is not less than 90, then it's 90 and above. Okay, we don't want all the numbers 90 and above. We want the numbers 90 and above, but at the same time less than 101, which is going to give us the range of 90 to 100. Okay, so in that case, then letter grade is going to be equal to A, I guess. So once we are done, okay, this is outside the if statement. Once we are done with the if statement, what we want to do is go ahead and return the letter grade like this. Return the letter grade, basically. Once we've given it the test score, go ahead, check to see what letter grade that grade is, and then return that letter grade. So that's what the determineGrade method is going to do. So now we're done creating the two methods. Now, for the most part, we are done. So let's see. So it says write a program that is going to ask the user to enter 5 test scores. The program should display a letter grade for each score and the average test score. Write the following methods in the program. Okay. So in main, we have to go ahead and ask the user to display 5 test scores. Now we have to store those 5 individual test scores in their own separate variables. And we can go ahead and just ask individually. Say we can say score 1, and then we put the value of score 1 in score 1. Score 2, we can do that. You can go ahead and type it separately, scanner.next double, and then storage in score 1. Do the same thing for score 2 by typing it ourselves. But that's repeating ourselves. We haven't learned like advanced topics enough, like let's say arrays, to be able to store and return. We haven't, so the only thing we have right now is functions, methods and loops and if statements. So since this is kind of like a repetition, let's go ahead and use a loop to ask for the questions, and then we'll figure out a way in the loop to store each score in its own variable. Right? So let's go ahead and use a loop. I'm going to create a for loop that is going to loop 5 times. And each time it's going to ask the user for a score. So the for loop is going to, the job of this for loop is going to ask the user for the scores and then store each score in its own separate variable or respective variable. So I'm going to start from 1 all the way to 5. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a variable in the for loop, and I'm going to name it. Well, first of all, it's going to be a double. Let's see. Actually, it's going to be an integer, right? Let's make it an integer. It's going to be an integer because that's going to be the number of like which score it is, score 1, score 2, score 3. So it's going to be an integer, and I'm going to name it. Let's see, current score entry. I'm just going to name it current score entry. It's basically current score, pretty much. Yeah, you can name it anything that makes sense to you, but I'm going to name it current score, which is going to keep track of. For initial, I'm going to set it to 1. It's going to keep track of basically which score we are on, which score is being asked, which score the user is entering. Okay. So we're asking the user. This is going to represent score 1. Enter score 1. Enter score 2. So this is going to keep track of the number the user is basically currently entering the score in. So current score is equal to 1. Okay, as long as current score is less than or equal to 5. We can even go ahead and create a variable and call it. It's going to be an integer. Integer. I'm going to call it number of scores. Okay, number of scores, or you can just say total scores if you want. So as long as the current score is equal to the number of scores, okay, which is, let's initialize it to 5. That's what I meant to do, I forgot. Okay, so int number of scores is equal to 5. So as long as the current score is less than or equal to number of scores, do what's in this loop, and before you come back up here and check to see if the current score is less than or equal to the number of scores, add 1 to current score. Okay, so start from 1, do what's in the loop. First of all, start from 1, check to see if the current score is less than or equal to the number of scores, basically the max, which is 5. Do what's in the loop, and before you come back up and check to see if the current score is less than or equal to number of scores, add 1 to current score. And then keep looping. Add 1 to current score and change it to 2. As long as the 2 is less than the total number of scores we're asking the user, do what's in the loop, add 1 to current score, and then check again. So basically, this loop is iterating 5 times. Okay, we are starting from 1, and as long as the current score is less than or equal to the number of scores, which is 5. So this loop is basically iterating 5 times. And each time, what we want to do is we want to go ahead. Now we've created the scanner object in main over here. We've created it here. Okay, so we can go ahead and use it. Each time around, we want to go and ask the user. So system.out.println. We want to ask the user to enter a score. And because the current score is keeping track of which particular score we are on, it's going to basically, we can use the variable and then display to the user what score they should enter in. So we can say system.out.println, please enter score. Now, because this current score variable is keeping track of the number of which number we are on, which score the user is entering, we can use the content in the variable. We can say, please enter score, current score over here. Okay, now current score is going to just keep track of basically what score we are on right now. So please enter score. Initially, it's going to be score 1. It's going to be incremented to 2. Initially, the next one is going to be, please enter score 2. Okay, and so on.